It looks like we're loading in here. We are doing Breathe and Bead today, so welcome everybody for joining us today. My name is Bethany. I work at the College of Menominee Nations, Verna Fowler Academic Library, and Menominee Public Library. And I got a couple people with me today. Our presenter is Janice Rabidoux with the Menominee Child Family Services. And we also have Maria with us. She is our library director, also from the library. So as far as I know today, we are looking at brick stitch. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. I know very little about beading, so I'm a newbie. Learning all these terms and everything is all new for me.
Okay, so welcome everyone. Brick stitch is the actual process is really detailed, and so it's very difficult to show you up close beading on this one. I have some samples here. As you can see, you know how detailed it is and how small it is as you're working it, because you know this is an earring. So this is kind of on a small scale. This is a little bit bigger earring. This is using different beads. But as you can tell, if I'm sitting here, you know, beading up close and trying to show you, my fingers are going to get in the way. It's just going to be a really difficult process for this one. So what I did this time was I drew up some diagrams for you and kind of show you that way. This is a bigger earring. Let me show you the finished one. I've got to tie off the tails on this one yet, but this is a brick stitch earring that I worked on. It's hard to figure out where the camera is on my phone. And this one's a little bit more complicated. It's a matter of these edges here, you're going in 2 beads rather than 1 bead, where my thumb is right here. So that process is a whole another process that has to be shown to you, but we won't be doing that. We're going to be just doing, you know, if you see, look at this edge here, this is the, you know, the more easy increase row, decrease row stitch that we'll be showing you. You know, all these other raggedy variations on these edges here on this finished piece is a little bit different process. So we won't be going into that part, but I wanted to show you the sample of earring, and you're seeing two windows or 2 images of me. One's on my hand, see me using my iPhone, and the other one is my iPad. So every once in a while I'll kind of go like this and show you up close, give you an example of the size of this earring. Wow. So this one is done. Still got to hide the tails. Like I said, when I do my work, I don't like to knot and cut off. I'll knot once and then I'll work my tails through. And then adding the top beads like a loop will be the final part of the project. Mostly all earrings that I do, that's the last part of it. I'll work my way. This is where I ended up, and I'll work my way with this thread all the way back up to the top, and then put a loop, and then work it through all the way back again, and then cut it off. That way you have that extra strength woven in between your beads as well, because you're working your way back in. So every time you can get a chance to work back through with thread is always a good thing, because it just strengthens your work. And this is what I'm working, the second one that I'm working on. The sample, the diagrams that I'm going to show you is going to be working from the bottom up. You usually start with 2 beads side by side, and then you work your way this way. Eventually, I mean, if you want to, you know, turn your work upside down and work on it, so you're going this way. But you will probably most likely just always be using beading from the bottom up, starting with the 2 beads and then increasing and decreasing as you go along. So this is where I'm at on this one. I just finished up the middle white spine of the feather. So I'm going to be finishing the rest of these up with black. I think I've got about 6 or 7 rows to go. This is the sample, the diagram that I am using. I have this is a brick stitch diagram by artbeads.com. I pulled it off on the internet. And the squares are right next to each other and they're shifted over on the next row. And then next row they're shifted back. So if you look row by row, you can see that brick stitch pattern. So I went ahead and I found this earring online somewhere. Someone was showing their finished beadwork. And so I just looked at it and I didn't copy the pattern, but I saw where they, would switch to a different color. And so I kind of just guessed my way around on the shape and the colors and everything. And, it's my own pattern now because it's different than what I was working off of. But I got the idea from someone else. So I'm really happy with how it's turning out. And like so. I have white beads, light gray, darker gray, and then black. I think there's not much of a difference in between the two grays. Well, there kind of is when you see up close. Mm-hmm. Farther back, it kind of blends in a little bit more. So I guess I'd like a little bit more of the blending going on between the two grays and into the black. So I think next time I make these, I'll try something a little different with the shading. I'm really enjoying this one here. It's the first time.
What kind of beads are you using?
Oh, I'll get into that. This is the Delicas. Yeah, this is the first time I've really gone into a more intricate design, and hopefully, I'm learning as I'm going, and hopefully I'll be able to do a lot more different kind of designs. To feel more comfortable with my process and my abilities, I am sticking with the Delica seed beads. They are those cylindrical beads and not the round seedy ones. I think some people call them hex beads also, or a hexagon. I don't know if that's the same or not, but these are Delicas. It says so right here on the thing. So that's what I use. And I like them because they lock together and they fit real nice and tight together because they're all pretty uniform. You can see how uniform they are. They touch really well and there's no holes. Versus, these were also Delica, different, these are flat colors and these were the more shiny ones. Versus the round seed beads. Now, these ones gave me a little less uniformity. And so some of my rows are crooked, or some of the beads kind of look a little lopsided. So I wasn't too happy with the quality on these ones. It could have just been the type of beads I was using too. Sometimes when you buy beads from different places, you get different qualities. So I'm going to look at that again to see, maybe I'll just not use this brand anymore. Because I'm sure there's some patterns and some finished pieces that you make with the round beads that turn out perfectly fine. But this is not a real good quality on my part. What I think of as being a nice, tight, even finished piece.
It's, when you showed them earlier, I didn't really see the differences, but now looking at them like side by side, you can really see the difference of the more interlocking versus a little bit of gaps.
Right. When I hold it close up to my phone like this, can you see it? Is it blurring?
It's focusing for me.
Okay. I gotta put my glasses on. Okay. Yeah, this is working a little bit better with using my phone forward camera for this Zoom. Like I said, I wish I had this set up when I was doing some of the other work. So to begin with, I'm just going to show you the diagram. To begin with, we always start with two, or I always start with 2 beads. And I want to stress that I like to show people how I do things, how I learned, but it's not always the right way, and it's always not always the best way. So I'm showing you how I start, and I'm humbled by some beaders who, you know, have fantastic, beautiful beadwork, and I always love, you know, learning and doing it more and more so I can become better and better. So at this point in my learning, and these Zoom sessions, I want to stress that I do what I can to do the best I can, and this is my way of doing it. And I really, really welcome any comments or anyone that has any suggestions on doing it a different way, or how they experienced learning, or, you know, which way they do it, and if they've had better success doing it a different way. I did in the process learn different ways of adding rows and subtracting rows. So I'll show you that process too, but I'm finding there's certain ways for me to do it that are easier, but you get the same results. So this is the first. I'm going to cover some of this up so you don't get mixed up. This is the first diagram I wanted to show you on how to begin. You started with 2 beads, and you will, you know, you put your 2 beads on your string thread, and then you go through the first bead the same direction. So they're sitting next to each other. Some people will knot this first bead. They'll put their string on, tie a knot, and then go through. That's really a nice thing to do. Sometimes I find myself doing that just because this knot that I put when I first start ends up being in the way, and it gets a little unsightly, but it sometimes will secure your work when you begin, and it's much easier to continue on after that. So this is kind of sideways again, isn't it? I'm trying to show it the way I see it, so I'm not getting mixed up myself. So that would be this way.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to shift everything over again. All right. So 2 beads on your string, bring it through, and you're ready to go. Knot it if you want. So the next process is adding 1 bead for the next, to start the next row. Now, this process here will show a string on the end. And if you don't mind having that, go ahead and start your second row like that. But if you're like me and don't like that every other row you're going to see a string on the edge, there's a different way of doing that. But this is the basic way of brick stitching and adding a bead. So I went in, came through, I got my 2 beads on, right? All right, and this is where I ended. I'm going to put another bead on my string. I'm going to go through that loop that is made between the first 2 beads and come back out. And that's added a bead. That's all you do for this brick stitch. Okay, so now this looks a little more complicated. This is adding the 2 beads so you don't get the strings on the edge. This would normally have a string around it because what you're doing is you're going up and around. So this is the process I would do. I got my 2 beads, first beads on, right? I'm coming through, boom. I'm going to add 2 beads. These are the 2 beads. I'm going to go through that loop and then out. There's no string. It's because you added 2 beads versus adding the 1 bead. It's kind of like, wow, yeah, I guess I don't know how that works, but it works. after you do it a while, you kind of figure out, oh yeah, that's why the string is hiding, is because you're ending up here and you're coming through here.
Mhm.
So if you're ending up here and continuing, that string is always going to be there, right?
Right.
Because there's one bead. If you're coming through and ending up here, putting 2 beads on and just leaving that bead alone, there's no string.
Oh, that's cool. Nice little way to kind of tuck
Yeah.
it in.
So now after you do the 2 beads, it's going to shift your beads over. So there's your brick stitches starting. These are your first 2 rows, your first 2 beads in your first row. And then your second 2 beads you just added with no string on the side because you went through 2 beads. Okay. Now to add the 3rd bead, hope you can see that good.
Mhm.
All right. So here's my first 2 beads, right? I put them on my string. I come back through and I put 2 beads on, these ones. And I come over through through that loop, added 1 more bead and go through that same loop. And there's your second row. There are no strings on these sides because you started with 2 beads on this end. You're ending with 1 bead, but you're not going around there. You're only going through it and then back through it again. Okay. Am I losing you yet?
I think I'm following along.
Janice, I have a question.
Yeah.
With your thread, is it doubled or is it just one single thread because you're going through the bead so much?
Good question. 1 single thread because you will be going through the beads. And this is why I also suggest using the letter B thread that I've showed you in the past. Some people like to use the D only because they figure, oh, it's stronger, it'll last longer. But that little bit more thickness in your thread will prevent you from being able to go through your beads over and over again if you need to do that. So that's why I always stick with the B. All right. So should I go through it again a little bit? First time, adding 2 beads on the second row to get rid of that string that's on that first bead. And then finishing it off by adding your final bead. So your rows will always start with 2 beads when you are increasing rows. Like 2 beads, 3 beads, 4 beads, 5 beads. You'll always have 2 beads starting out and you'll go through and loop around that hitch that's there. And then you'll always end up with a 1 bead at the end. No need to worry about adding 2 beads anywhere, but the very first part of the row when you're adding. Okay, so it's always add 2 beads and then 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 for increasing your rows. When I say increasing, I mean, you know, two rows, 3 rows, and then it goes, or beads, and then 4 beads and 5 beads. So you're increasing and you're making it wider. That's what I mean by increasing rows. Okay, so you're increasing rows. Now you're getting to the point where you want to decrease. Because the sample that I was making on my pattern sheet is looking like this. I'm not doing it. I tried to start doing a sample piece for you here, but look at how small that is.
Wow.
So as you can tell, when I'm working, that first row, I'm trying to get my second row going. Look at how big my fingers are, and it's just going to cover up everything. You won't be able to see what I'm even doing. So that's why I need to show you by diagram. So this is the pattern that I was working on, the 2 rows, 3, 4, 5, 6, beads. And now I'm going to go back to 5 beads, 4 beads, 3 beads, 2 beads, and ending up with 1. Okay, so if you want to use that pattern of having that diamond shape, you would go ahead and end up with 1 bead. But if your pattern doesn't have to end up with 1 bead, you can, end it up with, what do I have here? 5 on the bottom, 6 on the bottom, to have that more flatter, rounded look on the end. You can do that too. It doesn't have to be 1 bead. But I wanted to show you how to reduce it down to 1 bead, and then how it's going to look when you're done with it. So this is how you reduce. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, that's my mom. Yeah. Put it in there. Okay. So I'll have to show you this part. Is this reading right side, right way?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. It's too big to show on the phone because it's getting to be bigger. Okay, so my first row up, add 2 beads, loop, add 1 bead. Third row, add 2 beads, loop. Now, when you do this process, it is, okay. This one here is going to be loose on you if you do it this way. This is going to wobble up and down, up and down. It's not going to be real secure, and it's going to lay kind of weird. That's the experience I have doing it this way. But this is one way of adding. Okay, I'm actually looking at this backwards. Okay. Okay, when you get to this row, yeah, you're going to go through and loop and come back up and come down and back up. I guess that's why I had the dashed line there, down, back up. So when you reduce, you are going to be working your way back through. So if I'm here, I want to add 2 beads, but instead of looping back onto that first loop like we have been doing, you want to go to the second loop. So my suggestion to you is that when you increase rows, you add 2 beads and loop on the first loop. When you decrease rows, you add 2 beads and loop on the second loop. Okay. So you're actually going like this and you're going to the second loop. I'm not even going around that loop, okay? This is why the diagrams will help. And then you come back up. Now you will want to secure that because this is the one that's going to wobble around on you. And you don't have to do it this way, but you want to go back through again and then come back through and then back up again, because you always want to end up at this last bead you put in. Okay, oh, this is kind of confusing. And then you finish off with your 1 bead. So you're always finishing the row off with 1 bead. There's nothing different there. The only different thing is when you reduce beads, reduce rows, you want to skip to the second loop. When you increase rows, you're doing it on the first loop. Okay, this is another way of looking at it. Okay. So another way of, this is the floppy way. That's right. Let's see if I can. So this one, if you're coming through and looping here and then just coming through again and then doing your final piece, right here is where it's going to be floppy. So that's why I suggested for you to go back through a couple of times, beads underneath, because then you're securing it onto that roll. It's confusing versus here. See, there's no security from here to here. So this is always going to be floppy. So that's my experience. So if you want to go through that extra little, go through the extra little loop through, come through and come through that way, or you can, you know, come through here, through here, through here. So what you're doing is you're always going to come back down onto this row somehow and, you know, loop through wherever you wherever it seems, where it makes sense. So you end up back here. You do it that way. It's really hard to explain this on diagram. Sorry about that. I'm probably confusing everyone more and more now. And that's why, you know, this process is so much easier to teach someone when you're doing it in person. And then doing it over and over again really, really helps. You know, looking at my diagrams, it just looks like, ugh, what is going on there? Even I'm looking at it like, what is going on? But that's basically it. Increasing rows and then decreasing by going to the second loop and then working your way back through to get where you need to get. And then I think what I'll do too is I will make copies of this or take photos and post them on the comment section. There will be no explanations. It will just be this diagram. So I don't know how helpful they'll be. But I would suggest that you also go online and watch YouTube and look for, you know, watch someone doing the demonstration, and that will help. You will find a lot of people doing demonstrations where I'm watching and I'm thinking, no, that doesn't seem right. You know, it's their way of learning and that's their way of doing it, but the quality I feel isn't there. The straightness isn't there. The secureness isn't there. So look around, try watching a couple different people. There's some beautiful Native American beaders out there and that have some nice videos to show you how they do their stuff. Okay, so the final diagram I want to show you is how to finish it off. And that is by having that one final piece on the top. Okay, so I have added beads each row, and then I reduced beads each row until I got to the final one. So what's going to happen is your final bead is going to have 2 strings on either side. You cannot get away with that from that because that's just the way it works. So I've got my 2 beads on. I come through. Wait, let me see where I'm at here. I come through, 2 beads on, over my loop, ready to put on my final bead. So I put my final bead on my string. I come through and loop, and then I come back around. And there's where I end up. You can knot here if you want, and then hide your tail. Just go back through and wind it through and hide it, and then cut it off somewhere else. Do not cut it off where you knot. Okay, so that's pretty much what it looks like. 2 beads in the bottom. Oh, and then when you want to do your loops, I shouldn't say cut it off because you got to do your loops. The loops on top here where I have the hooks for the earrings, you got to have the extra little loop. So what you would do is, if this is where you ended up and you got that tail, work your way back down wherever you want until you end up back where you began, or you can end up on here, whatever. Add your 4 to 6 to 8 beads, however long you want your loop. You add them on as You work them around, 5, 6, and come back through again. Okay, and there's your loop, and that's where you can add your hook. And then you can knot there, and then you can hide your loop or your tail back in. So as you can see, you're working upside down when you're doing your brick stitch. I started with 2 and I added like that. And then I worked my string back down, and then I added my looped beads. Okay, make sense?
Janice, what do people usually make? Is it just earrings, or can you make other things with the brick stitch?
You can make other things. I mean, I've seen beautiful necklaces like laying flat and, you know, kind of like draped on the chest like that. Really beautiful. Brick stitch. Some people call it embroidery beading too. I mean, that might be a different process. I'm not quite sure. I haven't really looked into that, but I've seen some museum pieces down in Santa Fe where this woman had done some beautiful jewelry beadwork, and it was, you know, these necklaces and these bracelets, all intricate, and they looked like brick stitch, but I think she was calling them embroidery beading or something like that. So, but it's, you know, I've only ever done brick stitch earrings. Let me see if I have any. Oh, I have this pattern here that I don't remember who gave it to me. Oh, this is my pattern that I used for my purple earrings. That's that one. But I found this, someone gave this to me. Eagle feathers, and that would be similar to this one but different. I made my own pattern for this one, but I can make a copy of this or maybe find another example. This one's all beaten up. It's when I got it, it was already colored in and marked on, so I just left it. I just like the patterns to go by. This talks about increasing and decreasing. Number 13, hex beads. 13 is smaller than 11. I was using size 11s for these, so you can imagine the tiny intricate work using a number 13s.
It's gonna be pretty tiny.
And that's that.
So when you do your brick stitch, Janice, do you need to have a pattern? It's not something you can just visualize without one?
Yeah, you can just go with it. Yeah.
I don't think that'd be my level.
Yeah, sometimes it does take some planning though, and thinking in the head, you know, like even though these little earrings have a simple pattern, you know, and you're going along and say, oh yeah, this is relaxing, but you hit that spot where you need to put a black bead in, but you forget, and then you just keep going, and you get to the next row and you're like, oh my God, I forgot. That's kind of when it's nice to have that piece of paper and you're marking off your rows. Okay. So when you look at the next row coming up, it's like, okay, I got to have a black bead in there. And then you remember, okay, I got to put that black bead in. So for me, that helps.
Okay.
And same with, you know, like starting with the yellow rows and how they come down slanted.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't show very well. The same thing, you know, you've got a yellow bead and then white, white, black. Next row you go in with a yellow bead, white, 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 and then you come out with an orange, yellow, white. So that's when it starts getting like, you really got to watch your pattern so you remember which color bead you're putting on. Because even though the pattern is real simple looking by just looking at it, it's like, oh, they're just V's coming down. When you're going across and reading them across, it's not a pattern. It's like white, red, yellow, white, white, green, white. And it's just like, wow. So that's when a regular colored pattern works for me. So that's pretty much all I have. I really wish that I could do more hands-on demonstration at this point, but this brick stitches will not allow that for present viewing, because you guys would all be looking at it like, what is she doing? And it gets all blurry. And although I did get my camera to work real nice, and you got a good view this time.
Yeah. Really nice.
It would have been nice setup with the loom beading that we had. It would have been much better. So what are you guys working on? Can we share a little bit?
Sure. I'm still working on the same thing. I only seem to work on it during these. So
Yeah.
I'm now working on the brown like stem of this plant. And it'll be brown on the branch as well.
Well,
So it's
that's
colors.
really intricate too. So what you're doing, your embroidery is your stitches are close together, right? You're laying each.
Yeah, so the green is a satin stitch, so they're like really close together.
Yeah.
And then the brown right now is a running stitch.
Okay, so what is, turn it around. I want to see what
the
stitch
back
looks like. Yeah.
So it's
the
not
same
crazy
thing.
right now.
You're
Yeah.
kind of like going around in a
Yeah,
circular,
you'll get
right?
the green ones are kind of connected because I connected them in the back. In the front, they're spaced out.
Okay.
So some of my stitches will hide in the back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
They gave me the diagrams they gave me on the paper, show all the different kinds of stitching styles that I'll be using. So
Nice.
the different ones.
Nice.
Yeah.
What about you, Maria? You doing some beading?
Same lanyard as last time.
Ooh.
Wow.
I like this line thing. It breaks
That's
up
a beautiful pattern.
That's
the
cool.
colors are the hardest part for me, trying to find colors that make everything pop, because sometimes I put a color together and it's like if I would have been the seafoam green as the background, it might not have popped as well as this blue.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's beautiful. I can't wait to see when that's done.
it takes a while to get around. I always say it's getting around the horn, but it's not to the horn yet.
Yeah. Tell me about it. And then you almost get to the horn and it's like, I'm still not there.
Oh gosh, it's taking forever.
Yeah.
I know. It was taking so long. I started doing small projects just to get done faster.
Right. Yeah. I forgot how long it took me to do a full lanyard. I was trying to keep track of the hours. I don't know if I wrote it down or not, but putting it down for a while and then picking it back up. And I think it was about 31 hours total. Yep. Just doing the beads.
Wow.
Yeah, I can imagine. It takes a while. Even if you get on a really good streak and you're humming along, it still takes a while.
Oh yeah. One at a time, all the way around and around and around.
Round and around.
Yeah.
What do you think would be good during this time while we're just, supposedly just sitting around? But I don't know about you guys. I did not get as much of my side project stuff as I've been wanting to do.
I know, me either. I'm still working from home and still have a lot of, computer work and meetings and Zoom meetings and a lot of distance stuff and online stuff, and it's tiring. I'm grateful that I'm still working, but I'm surprised at how very little time I've had to do any of my crafts and art stuff. And I have worked into my schedule making some masks. So that gives me a chance to, still contribute and do my outreach work and support community. And then it also gives me that chance to be mindful, doing mindfulness and self-care, because sewing for me is self-care. So I'm glad I have that. And then I have these Zoom meetings with you all doing art and doing beading. I just love it. It's like, oh, I get a chance to sit and talk about beads and do beads for an hour. That's great.
So we definitely love having you with us too, because like I said, I don't know anything about beading. So
yeah. Well, I'm running out of different techniques to show you guys, so I don't know how many more. We might have to do repeats or figure out something, because I don't know how long this platform that we'll have to rely on it, because of, you know, this health crisis that's going on. No one knows the future of it.
Mhm.
But, you know, I guess I'm prepared to continue doing these online sessions, you know, even if they change as far as, you know, how they're run and what we do. It's better than nothing, you know, if we have to continue to stay at home and be careful. It's good to have this outlet and this way to share, and be creative and to talk and see each other, and hopefully we'll get some more participants down the road.
Yes.
That would be
And
great.
if anybody watching actually wants to join in on the Zoom, we try to do this the first and third Wednesdays. So let us know. You can email at library@menominee.edu, or you can send a message right here on Facebook, and we can send that Zoom invite so we can have more people in our reading circle here.
Right.
Share
And,
your
you know, a lot of times too, because this is a live stream, it's a little bit frightening to be on live stream, you know, seeing yourself and knowing you know, people are seeing you and everything like that. And then I know I get very self-conscious. So, and that's okay, you know, we can, I would think, and I'm suggesting this, but, you know, it's definitely going to have to be talked about further down the road, if we will be switching it just to Zoom and not doing a live stream. And perhaps that will bring more people on board, because then it'll be a lot like what our original get-togethers were like at the library before we did this online Zooming, is meeting in person and talking and sharing like this, and, you know, not having the worries or expectations of, you know, being live streamed and having, you know,
What does my background look like?
Yeah. So, you know, if that's holding some people back from wanting to join us because it's live stream, it's understandable. And we could always look into, you know, having it just a strict Zoom and not live stream, if that's the route that the library would be willing to take. So I know it's important to have our presence online, and using Facebook live stream is a really good thing. And having these recorded sessions to be able to keep out there on our Facebook page is very helpful for everyone as well. So we'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what we're going to do next time. I ran out of things to show you guys. So if anyone has any ideas or wants to shoot some messages our way or comments on, you know, what they would like to see next, we can always do that. And I welcome any other beaders out there who want to share their talents and their knowledge. Come on, and we would be more than happy to share space with you to be able to experience your beading and your knowledge.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's like my mom is really big into crafting, and we always go to different places, and she likes talking to other crafters and seeing, even doing the exact same thing, the different techniques that are used from one person to another can be so different. You can learn different techniques and little tricks and stuff, which is always great.
Right.
That's what I find with a lot of crafters. It's a very sharing community.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing.
And that, yeah, that in having it, that personal connection and communication is good for a person's spirit. And you know, having that social connection is important for healthy growth and for getting through many different situations in your life. And always having that outlet is the best thing. So yeah, so with that being said, I guess we're pretty much done. Always reminding everyone, you know, mindfulness is a good thing, and Please practice it a little bit every day if you can. Take some time out of your day to have it just for yourself, to focus on something pleasant that you want to do, an activity. Even going out for walks and getting exercise is the best thing for you too. So, but if you're not very mobile, always just taking some time out of your day in the corner of your room to do some beading will help you breathe, breathe and bead. So.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Janice, for joining us once again.
Yeah. Thank you
really
for having
appreciate
me.
Yes, definitely. I'm learning all new bead tricks, which is great. I actually had to buy some beads to try some of these out. Uh, so, yes, I think we're good for today. We're working on our June calendar right now. So looking at to see how that's all going to work out. But we should be on the 1st and 3rd, I believe, Wednesdays of June. So we'll get that all sorted out and put together. And so keep an eye on our website and our Facebook page for those events coming up and anything else that we're doing, because we're keeping our programs pretty busy. So
you guys are doing a great job. Lots of stuff going on.
Oh yes, we're just like everywhere. So thank you everybody for joining us, and keep an eye out for everything else. Again, thank you, Janice, for presenting your brick stitch.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. We'll see you guys all later.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
guys.
Bye.